Welcome to YOUCANIC. Today here in YOUCANIC we have a 2016 Dodge Journey, and on this Dodge Journey we're going to go over how you'd replace your front brakes and rotor. So first, we've jacked up the vehicle. We have it supported with jack stands. We have the tires chalked on the back, and we'd like to do this on a decently level surface so that the car shouldn't be shifting while we're working on it. So when everything is supported and the tire has been removed, we now get to have the access to here. To make it for the ease of accessibility, what you want to do is turn the steering wheel to the right. Being that this has power steering, it's easy to just pull it to the right. So we have it raised up. We have our ease of accessibility here. You're going to take a screwdriver and be able to put it in between what would be the caliper and the brake pad, and we're just going to pull a little bit on there to just give us some depress the caliper cylinders a little bit, just so that when we remove these two bolts this will come off easily. So we have two number 13 bolts to remove, and then that way we can remove the caliper and separate it from the carrier unit, and then we'll remove two bolts that hold the carrier on to be able to get the carrier work done and replace the brake pads as well as the rotor. So these are two size 13 millimeter bolts. Now sometimes if they're over tight or they'll be stuck, and these are square, and so you would just get the big wrench to put on there and to be able to hold them so that you can loosen these. So we'll remove these bolts. Then with those bolts removed, we should be able to, because we depressed that a little bit, we have some easier access to be able to undo and pull this up. I've just set this up top here. We do the best not to put a lot of pressure or tension on this brake valve line. And now we're going to take off our brake pad. And we can see this brake pad actually got metal to metal and was wearing there, so they got good life out of it and used it completely. And they also ignored this right here. It usually has a bend, and it should give you the squeaky noise when you're hitting the brake. But that's going to be either the guide pins are a little bit sticky. The calipers themselves, the two pistons, they look pretty good. They look evenly spaced out. So it's probably one of the guide pins got a little sticky, is why the brake isn't completely even. So I'm going to take an old part of the old brake pad and set it in here, and then we're going to use just a pusher to push those pistons back. Being that there's two pistons on here, the closer you can get it to the middle to hopefully push it back all as one is the best for you. If not, you just change it to this side, push this a bit, change it to this side, and try to push them back fairly evenly spacing. All right, we push those pistons back at and they're evenly pushed back. And now, just so it'll be up out of our way, I'm going to use a bungee or any type of strap that you can use to hold this up, and to also, if you want to hold it up, keep it out of our way. And also try to provide the least amount of stress on the brake line. And so now we're going to go ahead and remove these two bolts here. These are size 21, and that is the bolts that hold the carrier unit And then we've removed those, and now we can pull this out, and then we will remove these guide pins, clean them up, put some more grease on them, and make them so that they slide easier. Okay, so this one moves easily. This one's definitely stiff, and that's why we can see that those brake pads had worn out a little bit unevenly. We'll start with the easy one, and we just need to you just pull this out, undo that. We're going to clean that off, put new lube on it, and reinsert. Alright, so this is just brake caliper grease, and you can buy it at your auto parts store. Even with your brake kit, a lot of times it comes with the grease. So just put that on there, and now I like to just kind of spin it as it goes in to coat all coats of it, and see that one moves really well. And now we're going to work on getting this one out and cleaning up that. Yeah, that one's pretty rusty and crusty in there, and so it does move. So if we just take this out, we'll polish off the guide pin, or you can replace the guide pins if they're too bad. But we'll polish it and re-grease it up, and it should be good. Alright, so we got the rubber boot off there. I'm going to clean this up real good, and then also clean out this hole as well as we can. Some brake cleaner, and then polish it up a little bit with some sandpaper, and then we should be able to, we'll re-grease this up and put this back in. So it took a second, needed to clean this out just by running some sandpaper in it, or a wire brush to clean the inside of that out. And also was able to clean up this guide pin pretty well. And so now we're going to lube it up real well, put it in, and put our dust boot back on. Otherwise, if this isn't able to be cleaned not that well, you can just, generally you can just buy new guide pins. So we have our dust boot that we're going to put back on here. Okay, so that's been installed, and then we're going to put lube on this, the brake caliper grease, and insert it. And now we've got the brake caliper grease on there. I like to spin it a little bit as it goes in, and you can see right now it's already nice in there. Okay, so next we want to pop these metal tabs or glides off, because we have new ones to put on. Essentially should be replacing those every time you replace the brakes, so that the brakes will slide in and out properly the way they should. Okay, so we've got those off. Now we have 4 more to put back on, and one thing you're going to want to make sure is that you get this little curly part to be on the outsides, because you're going to put your brake on the inside there so that it has this little pin to pull your brakes back. It's also called the anti chatter So it keeps it so your brakes shouldn't be making noise. Okay, so those are installed. And while we're at it, we'll go ahead and install our brake pads. There's no real difference on these, just that you want to, you're going to install them so that this little tab goes on the bottom side. And so that this little tab is, of course, if you look down here, it's down there riding there, and so it will pull the brake pads away from the caliper so that you don't, they don't stick. Okay, we want to remove the old rotor. There are no bolts in here to hold this on. This is just held on there, and so we're going to tap this rotor off and put our new rotor on. That's just brake cleaner. Clean up some of the brake dust, and if there was any residual oil, we try to clean that off. Then you can take your brake rotor, line it up on the holes, slide it in there, and then just for your ease, you can put a lug on here so that it holds that in place for why we're putting the carrier on and the caliper on, that this doesn't move around on us. So we can take our carrier with our brakes that are preloaded, and we can hold it over, install our big 21mm bolt. You see how that, when you press it together, it pulls back a little bit? That's due to those little tabs on those metal clips. And that's what you want them to do. It's to help it so it doesn't ride on the rotor itself. So we'll tighten those 21mm up. And now we can release our brake caliper that we have hanging up here. And we swing it down and over, and then push in the guide pins a little bit. Now we also make sure, hopefully, that we didn't spin this brake line around and twist it, because we want to keep the least amount of tension on that. We install these size 13mm bolts. Okay, now you can go ahead and remove your lug nut and be able to install the tire, tighten the tire on, and then be able to lower your vehicle down and torque the lug nuts to spec. And make sure that before you leave, you're going to pump your brakes so that you can fill the excess space up here with your brake fluid into the pistons, and then have your brakes ready to stop when you need to stop going down the road. Thanks for watching YOUCANIC, where you can be the mechanic.